Hello, SheSplain listeners. Before we get into episode 4, part 2 of Witch Hunts, I wanted to give a content warning. We will be discussing sexual assault and other violence towards women in this episode. In addition to that, I wanted to point out that witch hunts are a vast topic, and while we continue to do our best research and think intersectionally, we failed to point out during our recording that in some countries, women that are differently abled, transgendered, or non-heterosexual are particularly targeted for the kind of witch hunts and attacks that we'll be talking about. We really appreciate all the feedback that we've been given, and we hope that you continue to listen and enjoy while we learn and grow SheSplain. Thanks.
Okay, so obviously I chose to do Malleus Maleficarum because it was so important at the time to the witch hunts. It was their guidebook, their compass, and because it reached so many people globally and so many different witch hunts globally, that really expanded into the more modern witch hunts that we saw in Salem, and even more modern to the witch hunts that we see still around the world and sort of in America going on.
Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about more the modern side of things. I was actually pretty surprised to find how prevalent it still is in the same form of what you were talking about. I know we talk about social media witch hunts and all of that, but, quote, traditional style witch hunts are still happening in parts of the world, which is just crazy. I'll just want to start giving you a list of, this is just the ones that I came across, countries that witch hunts have been happening in the last 5 years.
Last 5?
Last 5 years. That's including punishment or execution. Both are still happening. Sometimes they're not executed. Sometimes it's just torture in public shaming. So these are the countries: India, Nepal, Papua New Guinea, Tanzania, Saudi Arabia, and Zambia. There's definitely more, but those are just the ones that have been in the news.
I think I was aware of Zambia, but I definitely didn't realize it was within the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Because that's when we met.
Yeah, and actually there was in the news just on Halloween a killing of two women in the name of witchcraft.
In India?
Yeah.
Jesus.
So I'm actually going to focus on India and Papua New Guinea because there was just so much that I had to just pick two. So
yeah, there is, and there's a lot of I was overwhelmed by all of just in the research, the small amount of research that I was doing. I was overwhelmed with how big that history book is. If you put it all in there, it's huge, and it's not something that people still talk about.
People, when you say witch hunts, all anyone ever thinks about is the Salem witch trials. Yeah. At least here. I don't know what people in other countries are thinking about, but that's what people think about, and that is just such a small sliver in the entire history of witch hunts.
Yeah. And well, we also kind of make witch hunts sexy in this country. It's not like we have this idea of what witches are, and it's on a broomstick with the wart nose and the green hair and kind of silly. It's not something that's taken seriously.
Yeah.
And that's crazy to me.
Yeah, but I mean, people are still taking witchcraft very seriously in some countries. So I'm gonna talk about India for a little bit and what's happening now. In the last 15 years, there's been almost 2,000 killings, mostly women. That's just the last 15 years. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, why is this happening? It's mostly happening in rural areas. I have a hard time saying the word rural. Suburban areas. No, it's not suburban though. Rural areas that aren't modernized. They're far away from the cities, so they just don't have, the technologies and the knowledge and all of that comes with modernization. However, when I get to Papua New Guinea, we'll talk about that a little bit because it's not all about the technology. So mostly it's women that are in some way involved with unexplained illnesses. Personal disputes is a big thing and kind of makes you think, oh, maybe it's just people wanting to kill women. Like,
Yeah. Again.
yeah.
No big.
And
No bigs.
also they can be blamed for things like bad harvests. Basically anything where you need a scapegoat.
And that's centuries, because that was definitely one of the things that witches were blamed for in the 14th century, the 18th century. We didn't do well enough as farmers. It's a lady's fault.
Right. Particularly the personal disputes thing is the one that bothers me the most, because it's usually, and I've read a couple of different things, but this one particular case, there was a woman who in 2010, 6 years ago, was killed because she was asking for payment from her employers.
What?
So she was like, hey, can I get paid? And they were like, you're a witch! And then they killed her. And then they took her land.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Yeah, so that happened 6 years ago. That happened 6 years ago in India. But there are some activists.
Oh, good.
Which is great. And from what I've read, mostly activists are generally women that have been accused of witchcraft before.
Mm.
So they understand the experience, and they have survived one way or another, and so they make it their mission to help other women. And I've read several women that had become activists and advocates for witch hunt victims that actually said that they believed in witchcraft before it happened to them. And that was like their wake-up call. That it's so, like, so many people believe in this stuff. And then when it happens to you, you're like, oh, actually, this is not real. A big part of it is definitely correlated with a lack of scientific advancements and exposure to those things that explain, like the unexplained illnesses is like a huge thing that women get accused of witchcraft for. Probably more than 9 times out of 10, it's something that's very well explainable. Just these people don't know. They don't know. They don't know what it is. So
and they need something.
And it's the same thing. They're just trying to find a reason.
Yeah.
An explanation.
Blame it on the witch.
Yeah. So there's this really great activist in India. Her name is Birbala Rabba. She advocates personally, but she also, the biggest way for activists to make some kind of impact is to pressure the police to investigate, because it's not really high on their priority list.
Not a big crime there.
Yeah, and well, because it's so prevalent.
Yeah.
And she actually helped push through this legislation that bans accusing women of witchcraft. It's called the Assam Witch Hunting Prohibition, Prevention, and Protection Bill. They passed that in 2015. But the thing is, legislation doesn't matter if it's not being enforced.
Yeah.
So even though she was able to pass that, it's still so much of her work is putting pressure on the police to do something about it. And since that legislation has passed in 2015, this year there were 5 killings within 2 weeks in Bhubaneswar. And then in June of this year, there was a victim in Jharkhand, where there's a statewide ban who was accused of witchcraft. So they were like, hey, you're a witch. Here's this sick woman. You're a witch. Cure this sick woman. And she was like, I can't. I'm not a witch. So then they took her, they stripped her, beat her. Then they took her to a nearby school and gang raped her in the bathroom.
Oh my God.
And then they didn't kill her. What they did was the next day, they paraded her through the village.
Because she couldn't perform what a doctor was supposed to.
I mean, so the thing is, if she had cured the sick woman somehow miraculously, she was a witch.
She would have been a witch.
If she didn't, she still got persecuted. So
because then she's a witch who just doesn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
And what's worse than a regular witch?
Yeah.
One that doesn't listen.
Also, since that bill passed, there was a woman publicly tortured in a bazaar in Malda. There's a lot still going on, and yeah, there are people that are working against it. They're trying to pass legislation. They're passing it, but it's hard to enforce it when I don't know if the police don't care or if it's just you're going against something that's been part of the culture for so long that it's just hard to make those changes.
It's hard to believe it for yourself.
Yeah, and so one thing that I was thinking of when I was reading this, there's not as much science in these places, these areas, and they're not as exposed to as much modern knowledge about things that would explain away a lot of the things that they're trying to come up with explanations for, and that's what leads them to witchcraft. But do they really believe in witchcraft, or is this just a convenient weapon? And maybe it's both. Like, is it just both? Because it's clear that there are cases where women are just trying to be humans.
Yeah.
Trying to get paid for their work. Or I read another one, and it was, I don't remember if this was India or Papua New Guinea, but there was a woman that her father died of a heart attack, and because she was the eldest child, she was supposed to get his land, so her brother accused her of witchcraft and said that she killed her father. So, I mean, a lot of, like, personal things, and it's just, like, this catch-all weapon that you can use against women that are doing things you don't want to, or if you want to take something from them.
Yeah, or will have slightly more power than you will. I don't know. I feel like in some countries there definitely is a belief there that it's possible. But for India, that's hard for me. Even though India is a deeply religious place, it's still hard for me because I think of it as being more progressive.
Yeah.
Even with their religions.
I mean, we think of the U.S. as being a pretty progressive country as well, but there are parts of it that are less so.
Yeah. There are definitely parts that are less so. You get a little down when you talk about America right now.
Yeah.
The mood changes.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's move on then to Papua New Guinea, which is really going to be uplifting for you.
Oh, cool.
So, in Papua New Guinea, there's lots of stuff going on there still with these witch hunts. Because of the state of Papua New Guinea, the numbers there are not that clear. It does appear to be fairly common. Some organizations say, I don't know, they said like 200 in a couple of years or 5 years or something. But then another place is saying in Chimbu, which is just one area, estimated 20 murders a month. Which is pretty high.
That's real high.
20 a month.
That's high for Detroit. That's high.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, not witch hunts, but like murders. Like that's real high.
Yeah. And Papua New Guinea's not a big...
No.
It's not a big country, so this is just one area.
Yeah.
In that country. I read this really great long read on Huffington Post about the state of witch hunts in Papua New Guinea. And I wanted to read this one passage because I found it very...
unsettling?
Yeah. The men pack the witch's mouth with rags. The time for confessions has come and gone. Neighbors crowd in a circle around her, here on this hill of rubbish next to their settlement, Warcombe. They watch as the men blindfold her before tying her arms, legs, and stomach to a log. They watch as wood is stacked and gasoline poured. They watch as their witch is pushed face down into the pyre. Camera phones are held up and aimed. The match is struck and thrown. There are people that have cell phones. Like, they're advanced enough that they have technologies. I mean, still their understanding of science and health is not quite there, but these things are being shared on social media. That just blows my mind. And they're being shared proudly. Like, it reminds me of a lot of the things that happen here with girls that are sexually assaulted, and then those videos get shared on social media and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you're just like, what? Like, you're so far beyond not knowing that this is wrong that you're sharing this with the world.
Proudly. Wow.
That is nuts.
Yeah, that's bananas.
So what's interesting about Papua New Guinea is that they're pretty newly settled by the Western world compared to other parts of the world that are developing, quote unquote. And their biggest connection to the Western world right now is through missionaries. Mm-hmm. So that's still going on. And it's an interesting combination of religious and witchcraft.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I don't know how that would work well for this particular situation.
Right, and it's interesting that they even have the concept of witchcraft because usually it's associated in some way with religion, but until the white man came to Papua New Guinea, they didn't really have religion in that way. Do you have something to say?
Yeah, I did a thesis actually on a couple of tribes in Papua New Guinea.
Oh, I did a thesis.
Which is the only reason I know anything about this.
Oh, linguistics thesis.
This was actually for anthropology, which is another one of my degrees. I know, right? And so they have religion, and there are people who use, like what we would call magic. So it's really interesting and terrifying to me because that was a respected position. Often held by a woman, sometimes by a man.
So
I was wondering, do you know, I mean, it's tough to say, do you have any stats from before they were colonized?
No, I don't, but it's interesting that you mention people using powers and all that because there's this weird cognitive dissonance there. I think because they have these people called Glass Marie. They're supposedly reformed witches who use their powers for good. And they're consulted to basically find out a bad witch. Oh. So, it's like weird. Like, who's deciding who's a good witch and who's a bad witch? It's like they're not really like all on the same page in like, oh, witches are bad, but like some are good.
Yeah. It was interesting that you brought up women particularly being in those places of power because from what I know, which is very little about that area's religion, we'll call it religion, but I guess spiritual background, that they were healers. And that's crazy to me that now, burn the witch. Like that's, also when you said that they stuffed something into her mouth, like that made me gag so hard. That's like, ugh, because they're like dirty rags just being shoved into this woman's mouth.
Oh, that's not even the worst thing that they put in witches' mouths.
Oh.
Because I don't think I actually made a note of it, but I did read somewhere that some witches would be forced to eat defecation.
Yeah. Once again, this is something that's been going on for centuries.
Yes.
Get creative. Just do something different.
Yeah. Oh, so remember I was talking about the woman who her father died, and then her brother was like, "Hey, you're a witch. Give me the land." Like, so she's become what this journalist called a witch savior. Oh. And this journalist basically shadowed her for a couple days, I think. She's got a cell phone, and she'll be getting text messages from, I think there's like a priest or something that is involved as well in one certain area, and like there's a whole network of organizations that will basically, they call her or text her, and they're like, "Hey, can you go save this woman? Like, there's a trial going on. We have maybe a day."
Why isn't that a show on Netflix?
I don't know, but
that's interesting.
But the crazy thing is that her phone is like a prepaid phone. So while the journalist was there and following around, there was a period of time where she didn't have her phone activated because she had to go get more minutes. Oh. And you're just like, this is crazy that this is the way this operation is being run, because that's the best they can do. Yeah, and so what she does is she escaped her being accused by her brother. She hasn't been back home since then. Now she'll go to accused witches and get them out, bring them to safe houses, relocate them. They basically can never go back home.
This reminds me of the women who save other women in America from religious cults and organizations, particularly the FLDS, where you have to, like, and it's very, like, quick and you have to be secretive about it, and you have to go in and actually rescue these women from what are these terrible situations. And it's never easy for anyone. And being the rescuer, you walk this fine line of this person being so grateful to have you there, but also like not knowing anything outside of what they've been taught. What I've noticed is women who are taken out of that situation are usually abused women, and you have to reteach them to value themselves, or even they've never probably had that from the beginning. So it's this new foreign concept, and it's really hard for women to adjust to being actual people.
Yeah, and it didn't even go into what happens to these women after they're saved.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was saying that. I think it's so amazing that someone being taken out of that situation like she was is now going back and helping these other women.
Yeah, it's really admirable because it can't be easy, and there's definitely going to be times where she doesn't make it there in time.
Yeah.
And she knows the person's name, she knows their story, and to have to experience that loss all the time, I imagine, is just, how do you do that? But how do you not do it?
Yeah.
Right?
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so we're talking about police before in India, but it's even worse in Papua New Guinea because their whole law enforcement system is trying to figure out what it is. It's messy.
Yeah.
Here's the crazy thing, is that if somebody commits a crime against you, like a violent crime, you have to go get a medical statement. But that costs money, and people can't afford that. Say you can afford to get a medical statement. Then you have to go and convince the police to bother to investigate it and bother to prosecute. I mean, most people can't afford the medical statement, but in order to convince the investigators to do anything, investigators is probably a really generous term, you give them gasoline. That's your bribe.
Oh.
And because of this system, criminals, like violent criminals, or maybe just criminals in general, are caught and prosecuted at a rate of 3%, which is pretty darn low.
Efficient.
The Witch Savior, Monica, is her name.
It's a really cool title.
Yeah, Witch Savior
Witch
Monica.
Savior.
She's great. She's so cool. And she thinks that it's really about education. She feels that people in Papua New Guinea don't understand yet the randomness of misfortune.
Oh.
Basically.
Yeah.
It's so ingrained in their cultures, like, if something bad happens, it's because someone bad did something.
Yeah.
And to get past that is just a huge struggle for them. And she thinks it could possibly take generations to get past witch hunts because of how slowly people are starting to change their minds about it.
Catch on. Going back to the missionaries, did we decide they aren't helpful?
In regards to the witch hunts, I don't think they really fall either way. It's kind of complicated because they have these relationships with the natives, and they're trying to get them to take in organized religion. And it's like they take parts and pieces of it, but they're not giving up their old beliefs. They're kind of just adding it on.
Okay.
So that's where things just get, it's not, you would think, oh, okay, they're starting to believe in God and all these things. That means they'll stop believing in other things. But it doesn't. It's like they just kind of mash it all together.
And oftentimes, most missionaries are not educated in psychology of people. I mean, priests are usually.
Well, they're not trained to unpack all of the cultural things that are going on there. They're just there for one thing. Yeah. Literally on a mission. Yeah. To say, hey, accept God. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, it does seem like the missionaries some of the people are doing things to help. Like, they did call it one particular guy that was letting her know that the witch savior, Monica, letting her know what was, like, when things were going on, alerting her, like, being involved.
Yeah.
And that's really great. But then on the other side, they talked to these two particular missionary people that were basically like, if you get involved in something, just run. Like, just run. Don't get involved. They said that they had friends, other missionary friends, that got into a car accident, and people just rushed to the car, not to help,
but
to steal things.
Yeah.
And one of the bandits, or whatever you call them, was like, your life is more important than your stuff, you should run. And so they did. And so that's the state of things there.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so the good thing that we can learn from all of this is that with education and science, these sorts of things happen less. It goes down. It doesn't happen as much. But with that said, at the heart of witch hunts, I believe, is it's fear.
Yeah.
It's fear of unknown. It's fear of power you can't control in another person. And that, I think, brings us to social media witch hunts. That's like our modern witch hunt here in the U.S.
And it's strong.
And, I mean, it clearly has roots. There's a reason people call it a witch hunt.
Yeah.
Even though we're not literally going out and burning people.
But we're still going after those same individuals that were being sought after before, that are independent, free-thinking, not followers.
Yeah, so it's the same concept, really, is maybe we're not killing people, but we're hurting them and torturing them in the modern way, which is psychologically.
Yeah, we are.
So fun.
I'm actually going to bring up what we were talking about before, where it was the list, the list that was very similar to the list in the Hammer of the Witch, or Hammer of Witches. I always say the Hammer of the Witch because it sounds cooler to me. But our first troll on Instagram posted it, I believe. He's our first troll and biggest fan.
Really? That's...
Yeah.
What was that quote from?
I don't remember.
Feminists killing babies. Quote.
So, our good friend Ty Fireman 26.
He is 16. He's probably not a fireman.
Yeah, I don't think he is. He's 16, and
which we know because he posted a picture of his birthday cake.
Chicago Bulls. Happy birthday, Ty! Woo! Number 26. I don't even know what player that is. But it said the feminist agenda is not about equal rights of women. It's about a socialist, anti-family political movement that encourages women to leave their husbands, kill their children, practice witchcraft, destroy capitalism, and become lesbians. Lesbians!
We're not being weird. That's
from a movie. From Kissing Jessica Stein, a really good movie. I suggest reading it. I'm not reading it, watching it. But that's what that's all a witch hunt. Exactly what he said was a witch hunt. Women who leave their husbands.
Showing agency.
Yes.
Kill their children. Don't do that.
Don't kill your child, but obviously it's Pat Robertson. He's talking about abortion. Practice witchcraft. I don't know why he would. I don't know that one. Destroy capitalism and become lesbians, because those are the worst things that women can do.
But I think there is I don't think this is random. I think there is and always has been a connection between feminism and witchcraft.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
I mean, it's all about, what are witches? They're women who have power.
They're women who have power.
And
they're women
comes from themselves or from something other than the man.
Yes. They're women who own their own land, or they're women who don't get married. Even that was a big one back in the day. You're not married. You're a witch.
Or don't have babies.
Or can't have babies. You can't be fruitful and produce.
I also find it really interesting that particular quote includes socialism. Because a big point of socialism, of course, is being able to take care of each other, or being able to have free agency to take care of people the way we want, right? Or that people should be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But then when people are like, I have power to be able to do that, now they're vilified.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of a thing. Is like capitalism is supposed to be like a good thing and the foundation of America. So obviously the opposite is bad.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders.
All that man.
I would love to talk about some cases.
Yeah.
That you've probably heard of. And
Okay.
maybe we could just discuss, like, okay, who, particularly online shaming is kind of a big part of the social media witch hunt thing. And there's a couple that I think are really interesting and would love to discuss, like, okay, who deserves to have their life ruined? Because what's that threshold? I've definitely been that person that said, like, you know, I want this person to have their life ruined.
Yeah, I think we all have. But I'm not a witch, so it didn't happen.
Right. Exactly. But before we get to that, let's just talk about Gamergate.
Okay.
I think that fits into this whole thing, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, it does.
So, quick breakdown. It's confusing. It's about ethics in gamer journalism. JK. It's not about that. So there was a woman who released a game independently that she had designed. So her ex-boyfriend was like, oh, she's releasing this game and I'm bitter. So he posted this thing online that was like, she cheated on me with 5 other guys. And it turned out that one or more of the guys that she supposedly cheated on him with were gamer journalists. So there was this whole dispute about whether she was getting good reviews because she was sleeping with people to get good reviews. She started getting death threats and rape threats because
that's what you do to women who have sex.
Yeah.
You threaten to rape them.
Yep. And so it turned into this argument. So basically the I don't even want to call them trolls, but the people that were like, like, you're gonna die and like all that stuff.
I hate the word trolls because to me
it's too cute.
It's too cute. It's too jokey, and it's when it comes to something like that, when you are verbally threatening someone's life, or you're verbally threatening physical harm to them or any sort of harm, like, you aren't a troll to me. You're a violator and you're a criminal.
That's the same way that I feel about the term catcalling. It's too fucking cute.
Yeah, it's too cute.
It's a serious thing.
Yeah.
And we're diminishing the seriousness of it by using a cute word.
Yeah,
I don't like to use the word troll, but anyway, the people that were harassing her online.
We can use troll. We're just going to say, from now on, troll means total dirtbag shitface, and that's what it means. It's not cute. Don't think it's cute.
It's not cute. So these people that were harassing her realized that it definitely came off like they were harassing her for, you know, slut-shaming her, harassing her for basically being a woman who had the audacity to be a part of the gaming industry.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up, because it wasn't just that this was a woman having sex with multiple men. It was that she was in an industry that is mostly made up of men.
Yeah. So they realized that attacking her in that way made it seem like, oh, we're being sexist, and that's obvious. So then they turned this whole thing around and they were like, oh, well, it's not about that. It's about ethics in gaming journalism, which it so is not. But that was their argument. That's basically the gist of the Gamergate.
And it's confusing to get that out of Gamergate, because at the time when it was like, we're going to turn this around into something else, a lot of other news stories were coming out about other video game journalists and taking bribes, and it actually ended up being a huge deal within that community because a lot of things changed. So it was hard to kind of get to the meat of what started that, because it was about this woman and about what she had to go to, but then very quickly it turned into, this journalist took this from this company and this company's offering this to journalists. So it never really was addressed properly.
Yeah, and so I think this particular case is very much a witch hunt because of the reasoning behind it. It's giving this reason that's obviously a veil for what's really going on.
Oh, yeah.
Which seems historically the exact same as always, right? Like,
it's exactly the same thing. It's just in a new form. It looks a little different, but it's the same idea.
Yep.
Almost using the, like, we were talking about technology and science, almost using those things as the excuse for that, right?
Yeah, and it's like it's almost like a 360, right? Because it's gone from lack of technology and science creating these misunderstandings to actually the technology being the environment for these things to happen. Another case I want to talk about, there's this woman called Justine Sacco. She was the one that tweeted...
Yes!
Yeah. So she tweeted this thing...
I should be excited about that, but I just knew something.
About... So within the context, she was trying to make a comment, basically, on her white privilege, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And it was... People took it very literally, as if she was not taking these things seriously. So what she said was, going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS, just kidding, I'm white. Obviously insensitive, I think, and just what I've read, it sounds like she was trying to actually make a point, but without the context, without knowing who she is, yeah, it does come off really not good.
And without all that, and being a member of those communities, or communities that would be affected by that, it does seem very insensitive.
Is that worth ruining someone's life over, though?
No, it is not.
Because she lost her job. I think, I don't know if oh no, it was the other one I'm going to talk about that didn't leave her house for a year because it destroyed her so much. That was a girl that had posted a photo at Arlington Cemetery of her giving the finger in front of a sign that said, be respectful and quiet, and she was pretending to yell and giving the finger. In the context of that one, there's always a context. The context of that one was that she had this thing with her friend where they would take a photo in front of a sign and do the opposite of what the sign said. So, like, if there was a sign that said no smoking, they would pretend to smoke.
Yeah. Once again, childish, but
Yeah.
not...
Do you destroy someone's life over that?
No,
like,
you don't.
Do you... Like, she was fired, she got death and rape threats, she didn't leave her house for a year, and even after she did get a job later, she was experiencing all this anxiety of not knowing whether they knew who she was or not, and being afraid to mention it because either way, but just living in fear of getting fired once they find out.
I read an article with Justine, and I think it was the New York Times. I'm not 100% sure. And the reporter had met with her after she had kind of started her life again. Yeah. And it was like she could contribute what she could to the article, but also there wasn't a lot that she wanted to contribute. You know, she couldn't say where she was working
it back
now.
up.
And I got the impression that maybe she had changed. I don't know if this is true, but maybe she had changed her name and she had a new job now, and she's just trying to erase a part of her life.
I mean, she made a mistake, and yeah, it was insensitive.
Yes.
But who among us has not said something insensitive?
Me all the time. Like,
it's that whole Jesus thing about casting the first stone. Like,
yeah,
come on, guys. Like, everybody said something shitty.
Yeah.
That's
terrifying to me. There's a show called The Internet Destroyed My Life. I think that's is it called The Internet Destroyed My Life? And I can't even watch previews or trailers for that show because it's terrifying to me. And we're being recorded all the time now, and something so small that other people don't have the context for, and you can scream it at the top of your lungs forever, and no one is going to believe you or care even. It's scary. It's really scary, and I feel that women bear the brunt of that a lot more than men do.
And that brings me to my next case that I really is just, it's so infuriating. This woman, Adria Richards, she was at a conference, and there were some dudes chilling
Yes.
in the audience near
Yes.
her. I think
I've
they
heard
were
of this
behind
one.
her. And they were making some jokes that were, I mean, they were mildly, like, innuendo-y.
And it was a tech conference? Or it was
Yes.
something like that. Like,
It was
in that
tech-related.
industry, yeah.
It was tech-related, which I think is important because this is an industry that is dominated by men as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's that whole thing of, like, the way that men act, locker room talk, the way that men act when they
So cute.
feel like they're in an environment where they're dominant. They're less, quote, on their best behavior.
Yeah.
So this woman heard these guys making these jokes. She turned around and she took a picture of them. And she tweeted what they said and hashtagged it, whatever the conference was. Someone from the conference came in and took the guys aside and was like, hey, like, what'd you do? Don't do that. So then later, basically nothing happened to them at the conference. But then later, one of the guys got fired. And then he wrote this thing online and was like, oh, you know, I got fired and I have kids and blah, blah, and kind of was like, you know.
I don't necessarily feel like these women before had their lives destroyed. This guy was fired.
Oh, but wait. Because this story's not about what happened to the guy.
No.
When he posted that he had been fired, tons of people online, probably the same people that were saying Gamergate was about ethics and gamer journalism, started attacking her with death threats, rape threats, racial insults because she's a woman of color. They started attacking her company's website, DDoS attacks,
Mm-hmm.
and told the company they wouldn't stop until they fired her, which is what they did. And she still doesn't have a job.
Because she's in the tech industry, and how the fuck do you get a tech job when you're a woman? It's real hard, is what I'm saying.
Oh, and the best part was there was a journalist that was he interviewed the guy that had gotten fired. He has a new job now, and the journalist said, hey, so did this whole experience change the way that you, like, talk to women or behave around women in your industry? And the guy was like, well, there are no women at my company, so...
The only thing that this has taught him is that he can still say whatever the fuck he wants, and he'll probably get a promotion. Because that's what happens.
Yeah.
I have a new job now, and I did a shitty thing, and I cried about it like a fucking white guy does. Ugh.
It makes you wonder. You would like to think, like, oh, everybody is equally susceptible to this kind of public shaming.
Yeah, you like to think that if I do a bad thing and there's a result of that bad thing, if Jake, who's sitting next to me, does the exact same bad thing, he will have the exact same result.
However,
it's just not true.
It's not true. And so that was something that I was thinking about when I was doing the research on social media, was like, because so much of witch hunts in history is very gendered.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, how are we going to talk about this? Because it's not, it's different.
Yeah.
But then I realized it's not that different. Yeah, definitely men are susceptible as well, but women actually get it way worse.
They get it way
and
worse.
And for longer.
Yeah, they feel it a lot longer than men feel it.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about witches as feminist icons.
Okay.
So, what makes a witch?
I guess when I think of it, I think of the woman from the craft that owns the witch store.
Yeah.
And that's because that's what I grew up with. And in my head, it was always like that woman. And so when I think of witches, I think of very earthy, spiritual women who are there to help and are there to give guidance. Because that's what I had gotten from a woman who I had associated as a witch. But, I mean, for everyone else, I don't know. I think that's different.
Yeah, and I think that image of a witch is kind of where this association of feminists and witches comes from, because they're trying to do good and make things better for everyone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Isn't that all we're trying to do as feminists?
Isn't that what everyone's trying to do? It's weird to me when not everyone is trying to do that.
Me
but
too.
yeah, as feminists, for sure.
Yeah. The other thing that makes them similar is that they're both feared.
Yeah.
They're one of the few things that women can be that scare men.
Yeah. Witch. What do you think, Jakey?
I hadn't thought about it like that. That's a really good point. We talked a little bit earlier about Malleus Maleficarum being reused now by some witch groups as a way of kind of taking a power back from that. And I think that's an important point, too, because, right, that was the book that was used to scare dudes to being afraid of women. And now they're like, you know what? Yeah. This is...
You should be afraid.
Not that you should be afraid, but like...
Look at all my power.
We got power, too. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that, but I... Yeah.
There you go. Jake learned something. We accomplished our goal.
Thank you.
Jake learned something new today.
Okay, so to close out the podcast, we have to have our light topic.
Oh, can I ask Jake, though, as the designated dude, what did you get from our podcast? Like, what did you get sitting here listening?
That's a good question.
How does it feel to sit in a room and let two women talk?
I love it.
Without interrupting.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
A little background on Jake. Jake is a feminist, like self-described feminist.
Yeah, which is, I didn't always used to self-describe as a feminist.
Neither did I.
In college, we were sitting around with a group of friends, and somebody was like, yeah, you're a feminist. You would describe yourself. So I was like, I don't know that. I wouldn't call myself a feminist.
Because it's such a weird word.
Yeah, because I didn't understand really what it meant. Because I grew up in a very conservative part of Washington State, and you guys were talking earlier about, like, what is an icon of a witch, and for me, a lot of that was, like, spooky people that are scary because they're against what we believe in.
Yeah, but very similar to witches, feminism has that nasty picture that society kind of slaps on it and says that's what it is, and that's not what it is.
Yeah, and it's absolutely about, like, they need to have power over us, but that's, you're right, that's not at all what it is.
No.
So I love sitting in the room with two women just talking about topics. The problem I have is I get very excited, and so I'm like, ooh, I want to share, but I also understand that, like, what I have to share is, at best, tangentially related. So, like, so that's lots of things I'm like, these are facts that I've studied, because I don't have the anecdotal evidence. Like, I haven't had to live that.
Yeah.
In a weird way, I wish more people would have to.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to kill that one there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for that, Jake. No, but we do appreciate you being an ally. And it actually, I think it's really empowering to just be talking to another woman. And it's even more empowering to be talking to another woman and have a man there that's listening.
Yeah.
Because just being heard and being listened to is such a big thing. Because I think a lot of people, hashtag not all men,
not all men.
They spend most of the time that they should be listening trying to think of what they're going to say next. And if you can let go of that and actually just listen, I think you have a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we appreciate you listening and then giving your opinion and your thoughts when asked. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jake.
We're talking about, like, I'm a white dude. Like, I don't get it. I can try as best I can, but for me, it's really nice to sit down and listen, and actually listen, like, what can I do to help? What sorts of things are actually facing women? Or just anyone who is different from me. And so be able to sit down and listen to that without interrupting, without projecting myself onto a lot of that. To be able to, waiting to be called on means you have to distance yourself from it, right? And so you have to be able to actually listen outside of yourself. And so being able to do that is really fun, actually, for me, and very educational. I love it.
Cool.
Boop. I just booped his nose.
Boop, boop. Are we ready to do our closing segment?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about our fave witches in pop culture. Because it's a nice little light topic, but also, like, witches are great subjects of stories.
Yeah, they are.
And there's such a breadth of how they're portrayed in different ways. It's exciting.
So should we start with our favorite?
Yes.
Obviously, it's Sandy B.
Yes!
Practical magic. I love Nicole Kidman, too, because I think in that situation, I would have been Nicole Kidman, not Sandra Bullock. Like, I know me. I'm not gonna lie.
We've all been Nicole Kidman in that movie.
We've all been Nicole Kidman, where you're like, girl, what?
But some people never leave that phase.
Nope. Some don't.
We all want to be
okay.
the Sandy B, really.
Yeah. But Sandy B is my... And the actually, every single witch in that movie.
The aunts?
The aunts are the best.
Love the aunts.
Played by Stalker Channing and Diane West. So good. So good. They're just... I think that's also kind of what I had in my head growing up of what witches were them. Stalker Channing and Diane West in that movie look like what I thought witches looked like.
Yeah.
And they talked how I thought witches talked. And they drank midnight margaritas.
Oh.
Which obviously witches are gonna do.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously. Witches gonna be witches.
Oh, I love that movie.
Me too.
Well, there's two other movies that we both really love. And we pretty much watch every year. Hocus Pocus.
Well, yeah. Of course.
Best Witches, Sanderson sisters.
Ugh.
They're just, they're such great bad witches. They're not even bad. Like, they're kind of bad. Like, they're killing children.
Misguided.
But they're just so fun.
They're so fun. And Sarah Jessica Parker is so fucking cute in that movie.
And she's funny.
She's so funny. And
she's never been allowed to be the comic relief ever again.
No, not really. Like, I think maybe in the First Wives Club, which came first?
Oh, they were around the same time.
They were, and she was the comic relief, but again, she's kind of playing the same character.
She's very stereotypical, tropey.
Yeah.
Like, trollopy.
Yeah. Trollop. But she's such a funny trollop.
She's great. And I wish that she was able to do more comedy, because I think she has it, and she just, no one ever thinks of her in that way.
They don't, and I feel like when she has tried, she's made fun of.
Yeah.
Like, Failure to Launch, I've never seen it. I'm assuming it's a terrible movie, but I'm only assuming it's terrible because of, like, everyone kind of uses that as, like, the go-to bad, funny movie.
It's not great, but I will say, Zooey Deschanel in that movie is great. She's hilarious in that movie.
I didn't even know she was in it.
She's the, like, roommate or friend or whatever.
She's also hilarious in Almost Famous, and she's in it for, like, 4 seconds.
Yeah, that was like right before she like hit her break of fame. And she spends the entire movie, like, actually I think you could probably edit out all of her scenes and it would be like its own little story, because she barely interacts with Sarah Jessica Parker's character.
That's so funny. No, I'm
gonna
watch it.
She spends the whole movie like hunting a bird that's loud and annoying. And it's just funny.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Love it.
So we love the Sanderson sisters.
Love them. And then, of course, The Craft.
The Craft.
So good. Best Modern Witches.
Best Modern Witches. And what I loved about...
Best Modern Coven.
Oh, yeah. They are a coven. But what I love about that is that it's not just, like, the bad witch against the good children, which you see often. And it's not the bad witch against the witch hunter. It's a good witch and a bad witch, and then, like, some mediocre witches, which is life, if you think about it. Good witch, bad witch, mediocre witches. But
we
I like
are
that
the weirdos, mister.
Yeah, I like that they're just teenagers. Being teenagers, what you would do. Being teenagers with magic, and I'm, Veruca Salt, love her.
The 90s were, like, a big time for witch movies.
They were.
And TV shows. We also had Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which was huge when we were growing up. So big.
Loved Sabrina. I honestly watched Sabrina the Teenage Witch a couple days ago.
You know what? Like,
it's on Hulu.
I still find the animatronic cat endearing.
Hilarious.
Even though it's so bad.
Funny story. So, I was not young when Sabrina the Teenage Witch was out. I was, like, a kid, but I had a friend who had a little sister, and I had a black cat at the time, because of course I did. My mom, like, convinced this little kid that was Salem from Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and that Salem was magic. And, like, he's watching you, which is, like, I don't agree with, like, having weird things watch children, like Elf on the Shelf. That's weird. I don't agree with it. But it worked. Salem's gonna punish me somehow.
That's great.
Yeah.
Keep kids in line.
Yeah,
with threats.
You weren't like, hey, she wasn't being hit. Nobody spanked her.
I love it.
So
no, psychologically manipulate them into behaving well is much healthier.
Yeah, that's definitely my mom's theory.
I love it. And then another one I really like is Willow from Buffy.
Oh, Willow.
No, she wasn't the star of the show, but she definitely had her moments.
I like Willow. I like that character because she wasn't as supernatural as the other ones. I felt
she had to work for it.
Yeah. And I like that.
Yeah.
I always prefer superheroes that have to work for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what's cool about someone that just stumbles onto...
It's not, for me.
I mean,
I don't think it is.
It's fine, but I think people that work really hard to be a super cool person...
And then find it within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really cool, too. Which was also Sabrina. Like I said, I went back and watched it.
Mm-hmm.
Sabrina didn't just, like...
Oh, she had to work real hard.
She had to work real hard. She had to figure her shit out.
She made a lot of mistakes along the way.
She did. She could only turn things into pineapples in the beginning.
That's right.
Bringing it back. Bringing it back. But yeah,
that.
she had to work. She made some mistakes.
Yeah.
This is of course an obvious one, but I always related to Samantha from Bewitched because she just poor girl was married to an idiot. Like, he was so stupid. Of course he was in advertising too. And had to go and clean up after her husband all the time and his stupid mistakes, and she just wanted to take a bath.
She was a modern woman and a witch.
And just dealing with that.
Mm-hmm.
That sucked.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked
her. Yeah, and
her.
being a witch doesn't make it easier to be a woman.
It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't. Mm-mm. You don't just get to take a bath when you're a witch.
Jake, do you have any favorite witches?
I was trying to think of that. I actually really like Tara from Buffy. Who is right? She's the one that Willow Lawson falls in love with. Yeah.
Yes.
I thought she was a vampire.
No, she was a witch. That's how they met, because they both went to the witch, the witch club at the college, but nobody was taking it seriously except for the two of them. And they were like, oh, why are we even doing this? Nobody's taking this seriously. And then they were like, let's practice together.
Yeah.
And the reason I like her,
and then they fell in love.
Yeah, they did. It was wonderful.
Oh, quit being a pervert.
I just love. See, that's the thing. That's actually what I was going to say. Is that's what I like about Tara too. Is that she was very
so good-hearted.
She was good-hearted, and at the same time, she had a lot of power. But she was very overlooked, either because of her speech impediment or whatever reasons.
But I think her power came from her goodness.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I like her as a witch.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? I mean, McGonagall is totally up there on my list. I think she's a badass.
From Harry Potter.
McGonagall from Harry Potter. I like her. She's great. Again, she's a woman. You find out that she was married after all of the books and everything. J.K. Rowling has said, she was married. Her husband died in the First War. All these things, but it's just she's a fantastic character.
And I really love Hermione too, because she uses not just magical power, but to her, knowledge is just as important. And I think that's great. That's a great role model, because you don't have to look at her to be like, I can't be like Hermione because she's a witch and I don't have magic. Her knowledge was so much a part of why she was so powerful and badass.
Ooh.
Yeah, she's a cool witch. Sorry. Cool witch. Witches.
Am I right?
Is that it?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Witches are great.
I like them.
I like them too.
Blame it on the witch. Blame it on the witch. I don't know the rest of Blame It on the Rain.
I'm pretty sure it just goes, yeah, after that, right?
Blame it on the witch.
Yeah.
And that concludes Witch Hunts Then and Now. We want to thank you for listening, and don't forget to follow us on social media at SheSplain Podcast.